The sheriff thought he had won. He pointed his gun at the crippled man and arrogantly confessed to a murder from 15 years ago, believing they were alone. But he made a fatal mistake. He ignored the silent German shepherd watching him. He did not see the tiny red light blinking on the dog's chest, and he did not realize that the animal was wearing a body camera, broadcasting his every word to the entire world. The bitter wind of Montana sliced through the valley, carrying with it the biting scent of pine and impending snow. It was late December, and the temperature had dropped well below zero. At a desolate gas station near the edge of the Bitterroot National Forest, a rusted 1998 pickup truck sat idling, its exhaust puffing white clouds into the gray evening. Behind the wheel sat a man known only as Vance. He was 42 years old, though his eyes held the weariness of someone much older. He wore a heavy canvas jacket that had seen better days and a thick wool scarf wrapped tightly around the lower half of his face, concealing everything from the bridge of his nose down. He never removed it, not even inside the cab. To an observer, he looked like a man protecting himself from the cold, but the scarf hid scars that no surgeon could fully repair. Beside him on the passenger seat sat Ash, a magnificent 5-year-old German shepherd. The dog had a rare silver and sable coat that shimmered in the dim light. Ash wore a black tactical vest fitted with handle grips and pouches. He sat with the calm, statue-like stillness of a seasoned veteran, his amber eyes scanning the perimeter. Vance watched the rearview mirror. A newer truck had pulled in behind them near the air pumps. 2 men stepped out, laughing loudly. Ash let out a low, vibrating growl deep in his throat. Vance reached over and placed a gloved hand on the dog's neck. He did not need to speak. The bond between them was absolute. Vance cracked his window. The wind brought a metallic, coppery smell. It was not the chemical scent of narcotics. It was the smell of fresh blood and raw hide. Poachers. Vance stepped out of his truck. He moved with a slight limp, favoring his left leg, but his movements were silent. He approached the poachers' vehicle while they were inside the station buying supplies. With practiced efficiency, he placed a strip of road spikes beneath their rear tires. When the men returned and started their engine, the sharp hiss of puncturing rubber cut through the air. As they jumped out to inspect the damage, Vance ignited a red road flare. The sudden, blinding crimson light disoriented the men. Before they could reach for the hunting rifles in their rack, Ash launched himself from Vance's truck. The dog did not bite. He simply barked a thunderous, commanding warning that froze the men in their tracks. Vance moved in while they were paralyzed by the sight of the snarling beast. He kicked their legs out from under them and secured their wrists with heavy-duty zip ties. An hour later, outside the local sheriff's station, Vance dumped the 2 bound men onto the pavement, along with a bundle of bearskins he had retrieved from their truck. He pinned a note to one of their jackets. The station door opened. Sheriff Marcus Cole stepped out, flanked by a deputy. Cole was a tall, imposing man in his late 50s, with silver hair and the confident stride of a man who owned the town. Cole looked at the bound poachers, then at the stranger standing by the old truck. "Who are you?" Cole asked, his hand resting near his holster. Vance touched a small device on his throat, hidden beneath the scarf. When he spoke, the voice was mechanical, raspy, and distorted, like grinding gravel. "Just a concerned citizen," Vance replied. Cole narrowed his eyes, trying to place the man, but the scarf and the electronic voice offered no clues. He had no idea he was looking at the ghost of the son he had tried to kill 15 years ago. Inside the heated office of the sheriff, the air was thick with the smell of stale coffee and cigar smoke. Sheriff Marcus Cole sat behind a heavy oak desk, drumming his fingers on a manila folder. He looked at Vance, who stood by the door like a shadow, the scarf still wrapped tightly around his face. "I have a job for you," Cole said, sliding the folder across the desk. "There is a man hiding in the northern ridge, an accountant. He embezzled funds from the department and fled with sensitive documents. He is dangerous and desperate." Vance picked up the folder. His gloved hands moved with slow, deliberate precision. He knew it was a lie. The man in the photograph was not a criminal. He was a witness to Cole's corruption. But Vance did not argue. He tapped the device at his throat, and the synthesized voice scratched through the silence. "Dead or alive?" Vance asked. Cole leaned back, a cold smile playing on his lips. "Bring him in, but if he resists, do not hesitate to use force. Just make sure you bring back the documents." Vance nodded once, turned, and walked out into the biting cold. An hour later, Vance parked his truck at the trailhead leading into the dense forest. The snow was falling harder now, blanketing the world in silence. As he checked his gear, a green patrol SUV pulled up beside him. Sarah Lane stepped out of the vehicle. She was 37 years old, the lead forest ranger for the district. She wore her uniform with a sense of duty that seemed to weigh heavy on her shoulders. Her hair was pulled back in a practical bun, and her eyes were sharp, assessing the stranger with professional caution. "You should not be going up there," Sarah called out, her voice cutting through the wind. "There is a blizzard rolling in." Vance ignored her warning and moved to the passenger side of his truck to let Ash out. As soon as the German shepherd's paws hit the snow, the dog's demeanor changed. Ash froze, his nose twitching as he caught a scent on the wind. He turned his head toward Sarah. Usually, Ash was a statue of discipline, ignoring everyone but his handler. But now a low, mournful whine escaped his throat. His tail, usually still, began to wag slowly, thumping against Vance's leg. The dog took a step toward Sarah, his ears flat against his head in a submissive, affectionate greeting. Sarah paused, her hand hovering near her belt. She looked at the silver dog, a flicker of recognition passing through her eyes. "Easy, boy," she whispered, taking a tentative step forward. Vance felt a spike of panic. Ash remembered her. He jerked the leash, pulling the dog back sharply. He did not speak, knowing his mechanical voice would startle her. Instead, he raised his right hand, curled it into a tight fist, and slammed it downward through the air in a sharp vertical motion. It was a silent, aggressive command. Ash immediately dropped to his belly in the snow, his head lowering between his paws, eyes fixed on Vance. Sarah froze. The color drained from her face as she stared at Vance's gloved hand. That specific hand signal, the sharp downward fist for an immediate downstay, was not standard police training. It was a unique quirk, a habit belonging to a man she had buried 15 years ago. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice trembling against the wind. Vance did not answer. He turned his back on her, signaling Ash to heel, and disappeared into the tree line, leaving Sarah standing alone in the swirling snow, haunted by a ghost she thought was gone forever. The forest was a labyrinth of white and gray, the trees standing like silent sentinels under the heavy burden of snow. Ash took the lead, his silver and sable fur blending perfectly with the winter landscape. The German shepherd moved with his nose close to the ground, inhaling the invisible map of the wilderness. He stopped abruptly near a cluster of jagged rocks and looked back at Vance, his tail giving a single, rigid wag to the right. Vance followed the dog's gaze toward a small, darkened fissure in the cliff face. He signaled for Ash to stay low and crept forward. Inside the shallow cave, huddled against the damp stone, sat the accountant. He was a balding man in his 50s, wearing a thin coat that offered no protection against the Montana winter. He was shivering violently, his skin pale and blue tinged. When he saw the masked figure of Vance enter, the man scrambled backward, his eyes wide with terror. "Please," he stammered, his teeth chattering uncontrollably. "I do not have it." Vance knelt, not to handcuff the man, but to pull a chemical heat pack and a bottle of antibiotics from his jacket. He tossed them to the shivering man. "I know Marcus wants to kill you," Vance said, his synthesized voice echoing off the cave walls. "I am here to save you." Before the accountant could respond, Ash let out a sharp, urgent bark from the cave entrance. The dog spun around, facing the tree line at the 3:00 position, the fur along his spine standing erect. Vance extinguished his flashlight immediately. A split second later, the sharp crack of a rifle shot shattered the silence. A bullet chipped the stone inches from Vance's head, spraying rock dust into the air. "Stay down," Vance ordered the accountant. Through the curtain of falling snow, Vance spotted them. A team of 4 mercenaries clad in white tactical camouflage was advancing up the ridge. They moved with military precision, flanking the cave entrance. Vance was pinned. His heavier gear and the flare gun were in the tactical bag he had left near the entrance, now separated from him by a hail of suppressing fire. "Ash, fetch," Vance whispered, pointing to the bag lying in the open. The dog did not hesitate. Ash dropped his body flat against the snow, crawling on his belly like a soldier under barbed wire. Bullets kicked up sprays of snow around him, but the dog moved with fluid speed. He reached the bag, clamped his jaws around the heavy strap, and dragged it backward into the safety of the rock cover. Vance grabbed the bag and pulled out a heavy orange flare gun. He did not aim at the mercenaries. Instead, he raised the barrel toward the heavy shelf of snow hanging precariously on the cliff face directly above the attackers. The flare gun fired with a dull thump. A brilliant red streak hissed through the air and embedded itself into the snowpack. For a moment, there was silence. Then a deep, low rumble began to vibrate through the ground. The snow shelf fractured. With a deafening roar that drowned out the gunfire, tons of white powder cascaded down the mountainside. The mercenaries shouted in panic as the mini-avalanche swept over their position, burying their path and creating a massive, impassable wall of snow between them and the cave. Vance pulled the accountant to his feet. "We have to move," he rasped. "Now!" The blizzard raged against the glass windows of the abandoned fire lookout tower, turning the world outside into a swirling void of white. Inside, the air was freezing, smelling of dust and old pine wood. Vance, Sarah, and the trembling accountant huddled in the center of the small room, sheltered from the biting wind, but not the cold. Vance sat on a rusted metal crate, his breathing labored. The fall during their escape had reopened an old injury on his shoulder, and the adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a dull, throbbing ache. He reached up with a gloved hand to peel back the layers of his heavy canvas jacket. "Let me help," Sarah said softly, moving closer with a small first aid kit she had retrieved from her patrol pack. Vance hesitated. He looked at Ash, who was curled up on the floor, watching them with intense amber eyes. The dog let out a soft, low whine and nudged Sarah's hand with his wet nose, encouraging her forward. Slowly, Vance nodded. He unzipped the jacket and pulled down the collar of his thick thermal shirt. The fabric stuck slightly to his skin. As Sarah shone her flashlight onto his chest to inspect the bruising on his shoulder, the beam drifted lower. She gasped. The sound was sharp and involuntary, echoing in the small room. Across Vance's chest, visible just above the thermal shirt, was a roadmap of jagged, raised scars. They were not fresh wounds from the recent battle. They were old, thick keloid scars from a crude, life-saving surgery performed years ago. But among them was a specific star-shaped mark near his collarbone, a remnant of a childhood accident that Sarah remembered vividly. Her hand trembled, and the flashlight beam wavered. She looked up at his face, which was now partially exposed as he had lowered the scarf to breathe more easily. The skin was weathered and damaged, but the eyes were the same. "Elias?" she whispered, the name catching in her throat like a shard of glass. Vance did not look at her. He looked down at Ash. The dog had moved to sit between them, resting his heavy head on Sarah's knee while keeping his body pressed against Vance's leg, bridging the chasm of 15 years of silence. "Elias is dead," Vance rasped, his voice devoid of the warmth she remembered. "He died in the river 15 years ago. I am just what survived." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. "We thought you were gone. Marcus told us. He told us it was an accident. We have to take this to the state police. We have a witness now. We can put Marcus in prison." Vance shook his head slowly. He buttoned his shirt, covering the scars in the past. "Prison is too good for him," Vance said, his voice hardening like ice. "And the courts are too slow. He owns the judges in this county. If we go the legal route, this man," he gestured to the accountant, "will disappear before trial." "Then what do we do?" Sarah asked, wiping her eyes. Vance stood up, wincing slightly. He walked to the window, staring out into the storm. "I do not want his freedom, Sarah. I want his legacy. I am going to use his own greed to destroy him. By tomorrow morning, Marcus Cole will wish he had died in that river instead of me." Ash stood up and moved to Vance's side, pressing his flank against his master's leg, a silent promise of loyalty for the storm that was yet to come. The storm had finally broken, leaving behind a world buried in silence and deep drifts of white snow. At the edge of the forest road, the engine of Sarah's patrol vehicle purred softly. Vance stood by the driver's window, his breath pluming in the frigid air. "Get him to the state police headquarters," Vance said, his voice grating and low through the synthesizer. "Do not stop for anyone. Do not use the radio." Sarah nodded, her grip tight on the steering wheel. Her eyes lingered on his masked face, searching for the man she once knew. "Be careful, Elias." Vance watched them disappear down the winding mountain road, then turned his rusted truck toward the old lumber mill warehouse on the outskirts of town. It was a decaying structure of rusted corrugated iron and rotting wood, a relic of a time before Marcus Cole had sold the town's future for profit. He drove inside the vast, shadowy space and parked in the center. Vance stepped out, unarmed. He made sure to exaggerate his limp, dragging his left leg slightly as he walked to the middle of the concrete floor. He stood there, hands empty and visible, a solitary figure in a shaft of cold sunlight filtering through the broken roof. 10 minutes later, the heavy sound of tires crushing gravel announced their arrival. 3 black SUVs rolled into the warehouse, blocking the exit. Doors opened in unison. Marcus Cole stepped out, flanked by 4 armed deputies who moved with the aggression of hired soldiers rather than officers of the law. Cole scanned the empty space. He looked for the sniper rifle, the traps, or the silver dog. He saw nothing but a crippled man in a dirty canvas jacket, standing alone. The sheriff's face relaxed into a sneer of arrogant triumph. "I expected a fight," Cole said, his voice echoing off the metal walls. "But I see only a broken man." Vance stood his ground. "I am here to make a deal." Cole drew his service pistol. The metallic click of the safety catch being released was loud in the quiet warehouse. He walked forward until he was 10 feet away, aiming the weapon directly at Vance's forehead. "You are persistent," Cole said, stepping closer. "I threw a troublesome boy into the river 15 years ago to silence a problem. I thought the ice took care of him. It seems I was mistaken." Vance did not flinch. He looked at the gun, then up at Cole's eyes. "So you admit it. You killed Elias Thorne." "I did what was necessary for the greater good of this county," Cole spat, his arrogance blinding him to the situation. "And now I will finish the job properly. Give me the ledger." Vance slowly raised his empty hands, showing his palms to the armed men surrounding him. "I do not have it," Vance said calmly. Cole's finger tightened on the trigger, his face reddening with rage. "Do not play games with me. Hand it over, and I might make this quick." "I am not playing," Vance replied, his voice steady. "I do not carry the evidence. My partner holds it." Vance let out a sharp, piercing whistle that cut through the stagnant air of the warehouse. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the rusted metal door on the far side of the building groaned open. Ash stepped into the shaft of light, moving with a heavy, purposeful gait. The German Shepherd looked nothing like a house pet. He was outfitted in a black tactical K9 vest that hugged his powerful frame. Secured to his back was a small, sealed canvas pouch. But it was the device strapped to his chest that caught the light, a compact police body camera with a single red light blinking steadily in the gloom. Marcus Cole stared at the dog, then at the pouch on its back. A look of greedy realization washed over his face. He chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "You sent the dog to carry your secrets," Cole said, shaking his head. "Pathetic." He holstered his weapon and signaled for his deputies to lower their guns. Confident that he had won, Cole stepped forward. He approached Ash, who stood like a statue beside his master. The dog did not growl. He simply watched the sheriff with an intensity that would have unnerved a lesser man. Cole stopped directly in front of them. He bent down, bringing his face level with the dog's chest to unclip the pouch from the vest. He was so focused on the prize that he ignored the blinking red eye of the camera lens, mere inches from his nose. As his fingers touched the pouch, Cole leaned in, his voice dropping to a sinister whisper intended only for Vance. "After I burn this ledger," Cole hissed, "I am going to bury you in the same grave I dug for Elias 15 years ago." No one will ever find you." Vance did not move. He looked past Cole, staring directly into the lens on Ash's chest. "Did you get all of that, Sarah?" Vance asked, his synthesized voice loud and clear. Cole froze. The color drained from his face as the realization hit him like a physical blow. He looked down at the camera, then back at Vance. Suddenly, the wailing shriek of sirens pierced the silence, coming from every direction. The sound was deafening, accompanied by the screech of tires on gravel outside. Blue and red lights began to flash through the cracks in the warehouse walls, painting the room in a chaotic strobe. "It is over, Marcus," Vance said. "You are live on every news feed in the state." Cole stumbled backward, his hands shaking. He reached instinctively for his gun, but a low, vibrating rumble erupted from Ash's chest. The dog took a step forward, baring white teeth, ready to defend his handler. Cole lost his balance and fell hard onto the cold concrete, scrambling away from the animal in terror. The warehouse doors burst open. State troopers and FBI agents flooded the room, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Cole raised his hands in surrender, his face a mask of utter defeat and humiliation. As they cuffed him and dragged him past the very camera that had sealed his fate, he refused to look up. Vance watched the chaos from the shadows. He reached down and unclipped the leash from Ash's vest. "Let us go home, boy," he whispered. By the time Sarah ran into the warehouse, the spot where they had stood was empty. She hurried to the rear exit and pushed the door open. The snow had started to fall again, fresh and clean. She saw a set of boot prints and paw prints leading away toward the mountains, already beginning to fade under the new layer of white. Elias was gone, but Vance and Ash walked on, free at last. Even the coldest winter cannot freeze a heart that is guarded by loyalty. Vance and Ash remind us that while we all carry scars from our past, we never have to walk through the storm alone if we have a true friend by our side. If this story warmed your spirit, please consider joining our pack by subscribing and liking this video. We would love to hear about the loyal companions in your life down in the comments. To continue this journey of courage and bond, simply click the video appearing on your screen now and let us discover the next chapter together.